is what is inside each group. So if I divide 12 by 3, the size, then I have what's left, my unknown, represents the number of groups. Total, size of group, the only thing the unknown could possibly represent would be the number of groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. So look at that. How are those related? The product is the same as the factor here that you're starting with. The size of the group is the same as this size of the group. The quotient in the division problem, 4, which represents the number of groups, is the same as the number of groups in this multiplication problem. So you can clearly see here that 4 times 3 equals 12 is related to 12 divided by 3 equals 4. And you know that because you're using the same array. We never change that array. It's the same representation of the numbers. You are just doing opposite things. One is that you are taking the parts and you're making a larger number. You're trying to find the whole. And the other is that you already know the total. You already know the whole. And you're dividing it. You're making the whole smaller into its different parts. So let me erase really quick. So if I were to tell you to write a multiplication and division equation and draw an array with the following pieces of information, could you do it? I'm going to give you the total first. The total is going to be 10. The size of the group, the number inside each group, is going to be 2. And the number, another way to show number is by that symbol in the parentheses. The parentheses are the outside, but the symbol for the number is that, equals 5. The size of the group is 2. The number of the group is 5. The total is 10. So this is how I would do it. There are other ways to do it, okay? There are many ways, but here's an example, okay? Size, I'll look at that. I know that there are 2 in each row. So I might start by saying, okay, I know the size. Now I need to know how many number of groups I need. 5. So I might do that 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other way you could do it would be the opposite. You could say, okay, well, I like doing the number of rows better. So I know that the number of groups right now is the same as the number of rows. So that's going to change sometime, but right now we're just talking about rows. So you can say the number of groups is 5. I know I need 5 rows. So you start off with those rows. Rows are sideways. They're horizontal. You're rowing your boat. You're clapping your row. We had all sorts of ways to remember rows today. Then I would go back to my size. Okay, I know I need 2 in each row, inside each group. If you get confused, do this. Say, okay, that's a number of a group. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so check. Do I have 5 groups? Yep. Do I have 2 in each group? Yep. So I better double check. Do I have 10 total? I can count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I have 10. That's my total. You could also go down too. My hand was just closer to the bottom, so you could always do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can do that as well. So tomorrow, I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you a total. I'm going to give you the size of the group. How many are inside each group? I'm going to give you the number of the group. And I'm expecting you to know that right now, the number represents how many rows we have. So let's take a look. What is the multiplication sentence that you can make for this? We've talked about how right now we're doing multiplication as the number of groups times the size of the group. And that's going to give you your product. So let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups times what's inside 2 product. What's the answer? 10. I'm also going to ask you to give me a division equation that represents that array. So you're going to have to show me that you know that you start with the total, which would be, there's not a good place to write this, which would be 10 divided by, you're going to have to divide by, let's see, either the size or the number of groups. Honestly, I don't really, it's the same. For division, you can go both ways. So you can show me 10, and if you do this, then you're going to have to do it a particular way. 10 divided by 5 groups equals 2 in each group. Or if you had your array looking like this, then you could say 10 divided by 2 groups, 1, 2, equals 5. However, we really haven't talked about columns. Last year we did. So is that technically correct? Yes. Yes, it is. But ideally, what I want to see is that you're dividing by the number of groups so that we see this. Eventually, we'll get to columns being groups. But right now, you would do 10 divided by how many groups there are. 5 groups equals the size, how many in each group. Your quotient, your quotient is the answer 2. So your quotient here is the same as a factor here. Your product here is the same as a factor here. And the number of groups here is the same as the number of groups here. So this factor and this factor are the same, and they represent the same thing. So I need to know that you know that 2 represents the size of the group, that 10 represents the total, and 5 represents the number of groups. Again, if you did it the other way, I wouldn't necessarily count off for you, but I really want you to try and think about our groups being rows right now, because eventually they'll move into columns. Whew! Give yourself some tests tonight. Say, okay, I'm going to pick a number. Or have a grown-up pick a number. I'll give you possible numbers. How about that? Your total could be 20. Your total could be 30. Your total could be 12. Your total, if you want to go higher, you can go higher than that. Your total could be 18. Your total could be 24. All of those are good totals to try. And then your parent or your grown-up or you would have to know what 2 factors you could multiply to get that as your total. And then you would put that as your size of your group and your number of your group. Okay. Good luck, 2nd grade. You can do this, and you just got to put your mind to it. And once you do that, we can move on. Good luck.